Jovan Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to episode 56 of Buha's Block. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing 3 takeaways from Lakers training camp now that it is officially over. We have a game tomorrow on Friday, the Lakers' first preseason game. So with camp wrapped up, with 3 practices under the Lakers' belt, I attended all 3 practices, was there for the open portion to the media, was there for all the media availabilities, and I have a lot to get into. But first, as always, for those watching on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe, turn on post notifications so you don't miss a video, and like and comment on this episode. And for those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. And as a reminder, I will be going live after games from here on out, doing my post-game reactions that I did to close the last few months of last season, doing them live on YouTube, and then posting the audio on the podcast feed. So if you are a YouTube subscriber, or if you're not yet a YouTube subscriber, but you'd like to watch the post-game reactions live and ask me questions, interact with me during the shows, make sure to tune in Friday night after the Lakers' first preseason game against the Minnesota Timberwolves in Palm Springs. All right, so takeaway number 1 from the first 3 days of camp is that JJ Redick's approval rating with his players is through the roof. And we knew this coming out of media day. We knew this after the first practice, but it has just continued. Every player has had incredibly high praise for JJ. D'Angelo Russell talked about sending JJ Redick a thank you text message after the ATOs that the Lakers installed yesterday. JJ had mentioned that the Lakers installed 3 ATOs. They had a 2 out of 3 success rate in terms of executing them. And D'Angelo Russell actually gave us some context that Jackson Hayes was the one who snuffed out the play defensively and blew it up. D'Lo he said he was golfing after practice yesterday and sent JJ a thank you text for just being in his bag, his coaching bag, and coming up with creative ATO sets. D'Lo said that though this one set didn't work, that it was something he had never seen before on a basketball court, and that JJ has been flexing his basketball IQ and just his coaching ability and his ability to come up with things on the spot and to come up with intricate sets and actions. Rui Hachimura said that he has never practiced this hard in a training camp throughout his career. And he shouted out Scott Brooks, who was his previous coach in Washington, and said, under Scott, they did not practice this hard and they did not practice frequently. So that was kind of a funny moment of Rui playfully poking fun at Scott Brooks. But I think so far, again, like going through LeBron, Max Christie, AD, Austin, today, Rui, Gabe, and D'Lo, across the board, it has been nothing but praise from the Lakers players for JJ Redick. And everything is great when you've had a media day and 3 practices. You haven't had actual games, even though preseason games don't really count. But like, you haven't had those games. You haven't had a loss. You haven't had a certain guy thinking, hey, I should be this spot in the rotation. Like, why am I not playing? Or why am I being used this way in this unit, or guys missing shots or struggling or whatever. Like there's going to be different variables that come up throughout the season that are wrinkles in this good mood and this good vibe that's going around the Lakers right now. But with that said, I think it's just been nothing but encouraging in terms of the energy that I've witnessed firsthand in the gym. This is my 5th Lakers training camp, and I've never seen the energy or the mood be as high as it's been. Just talking to some people behind the scenes, that's all you've heard as well, that there's just a new vibe and energy and spirit with this group. So that's been certainly encouraging to hear. But also just the praise of JJ and the time and the efficiency, that everything has been efficient with his practices. So first 2 practices were exactly 2 hours and 5 minutes with 2 water breaks. And today's practice was called a tornado practice because it was a straight hour no water break, and they were just trying to get as much done as quickly as possible and as intensely as possible before they bust over to Palm Springs, where they're going to be playing on Friday against the Timberwolves and Sunday against the Phoenix Suns. So I think like that, just him doing everything as efficiently as possible. Like JJ talked about when he was a player, there'd be times where he would have practices that were like 3.5 hours long, and for 45 minutes, the players would just be standing there as they're going through walkthroughs and talking through different concepts. And he does not want to do that. For him, everything is about efficiency, making the practices as short as possible, but also as intense as possible within that time frame, and also just making sure the players aren't just standing around, making sure they're constantly doing something, that they're being active, being engaged in the process, and kind of figuring those things out more on the fly. I think that, again, like it's 3 days of camp, but I would say from an outsider's perspective, right? I'm not in the locker room yet. I'm not, we haven't been able to see actual scrimmaging or any of this stuff, but like just from everything we've actually been able to see, I think it's gone about as smoothly and as positive as is possible. So it all comes back to JJ, right? Like JJ is the one variable here that has dramatically changed. It's a new coaching staff, it's a new vision, it's a new voice. And so far, from media day and the team meeting they had that night into the 3 practices, it sounds like the Lakers have been, like, everyone's been on the same page, everyone's been happy, energetic, very engaged, and we'll see how long this lasts, right? And again, there's going to be different curveballs that come up that can change the mood or change a certain player's mood. And like there's the individual lens with everything, and there's also the group lens with everything, and that's what JJ was talking about. But I think so far, especially with JJ, I think he's passed all the tests, he's checked all the boxes, and now it's his first real test of preseason game and what is, like, how much of the installs that they've been working on in these practices can actually be applied to the game, and how does the offense look, how does the defense look, how does the rotation look, and we'll get into a little bit of that later in the episode. But so far, again, nothing but rave reviews from the players about JJ Redick. And on that front, I think that's been the most encouraging part of camp, is guys going out of their way to praise JJ in ways that, like, any new coach, there's always going to be some level of praise, some level of excitement, but this has really felt, in my opinion, genuine. Again, maybe some of this stuff is hyperbole, maybe this stuff is just lip service, but I think if you take it at face value, at least for now, and again, we'll see how long the good vibes last for, I think it's been an encouraging start to camp, and the vibes around the Lakers are in a place that they haven't always been. So in terms of takeaways, that is the most positive and promising one, in my opinion. Takeaway number 2 is analytics are a priority. And that is a change from the previous coaching regimes for the Lakers, where I think every coach uses analytics to some extent, but JJ is obviously on one side of the spectrum with that. And I think we'll use it to a larger degree than Darvin Ham or Frank Vogel did. So already some of the things that we've been hearing is, today JJ said that in the live action scrimmaging that they've done, Anthony Davis has been a willing participant in terms of taking more threes. Of course, in general, he wants the Lakers to be taking more threes, increase the volume. But you've also had them talking about how many miles players are running in practices. So the first day of camp, Bronny James led the group with 6 miles run. Jalen Hood-Schifino was second with 5.5 miles. And the players have had, this has been one thing where I don't want to say there's been like friction, but if there's been a little bit of hesitancy or pushback, it has been with some of the analytics stuff. Austin Reeves, I thought, had like the right perspective on it. He said he's more of a flow and feel guy, and he's never been big into analytics or numbers. But if that's something that JJ is going to prioritize and talk about and include in team meetings or his conversations with players, that Austin is going to embrace it more and at least be more open-minded to incorporating it. And doesn't mean he's going to take fewer mid-range jumpers necessarily, but it is something that he's going to at least be willing to have the conversation and you'll be open to adjusting his game offensively. So AD, though, took a little bit of a harsher stance, and was more so like saying he doesn't care about analytics, and that he, for him, it's just about like the outcome of who wins the game, outscoring the opponent, and that you could average 50 points a game and be in last place in the league or in your conference. And I would argue that that's not exactly analytics. And so I don't know if, like, I will say some players just don't like analytics or don't fully understand them, and to each their own. I don't think it's like a prerequisite, but obviously it's something that JJ Redick has been preaching and is going to be including in team meetings and film sessions and scouting reports and all that stuff. Like he is going to take a very analytical approach to it. And from his perspective, he told us yesterday that for him it's just information, and that more information is better, and that people, I think sometimes people make analytics into something that they're not, or just because analytics say shots at the rim and three-point shots are the most efficient, that means you should never take mid-range jumpers. And I think there are exceptions. And I think the Lakers have some of those guys who are exceptions where when AD's mid-range jumper is going, he's basically unguardable. Austin Reeves has a really good mid-range game. D'Angelo Russell, when he can beat guys to his spot, is a good mid-range shooter. LeBron has his mid-range bag out of the post, and his fadeaways or whatnot, then those spinning shots that he makes. So like I think that the Lakers have several guys who can excel in that mid-range area, but obviously, they've already excelled as a team in terms of getting to the rim and getting to the free throw line and living in the paint, living and loving in the paint, for those who know. But I think that the next level is maybe trading some of those mid-range jumpers for three-point shots, and I think sustaining the three-point progress that they made last season in terms of percentage, and then just ramping up the volume. And maybe there's a little bit of a trade-off there, but you could see an increase in offensive efficiency for a group that was the third best offense over the final 32 games of the season. And really, if you extrapolate it out even more, they were right there at like number 2 or number 3 for an even bigger sample size of the season. I just referenced that 32 game mark because that's when Rui Hachimura was inserted into the starting lineup. So how much can they uptick the volume? Because I think that there's always been this storyline entering camp or at some point in the preseason of the Lakers need to take more threes. They want AD to take more threes. We heard Frank Vogel say it. We heard Darvin Ham say it. And no one has really been able to crack that code and get AD to do it. And I would argue with the way that AD has shot the ball in recent years, you probably don't want him taking more threes. Of course, like if teams are playing off him 10, 12 feet and he's wide open, sure, take the shot. But AD like hunting and seeking out threes, I don't know if that's a strategy that I can get behind until I see him actually start to shoot the ball better. But in general, I think the Lakers being a bottom 5, bottom 3, 3-point shooting team in terms of volume in recent years, like that's problematic. And it's hard to win when you're taking that few threes unless you're the Denver Nuggets or the Lakers from 2020. But I don't think they quite have that defensive identity or that size from 2020 with this group. So I think they're going to have to play a different way, and I think they're actually going to have to lean more on their offense. There's no right or wrong answer, but if we're looking at ways for the Lakers to get over the hump and exceed their expectations, of course, one way is like players popping or overachieving, growing, developing into a better player than initially anticipated or expected. But another way is taking more threes, playing more efficiently, and really winning the margins. And that seems to be the way that they're trending. And I think that is something to monitor throughout the preseason and into the regular season is what are the ways that they're different analytically? What are the ways that they're different efficiency wise? And are those margins trending in the right direction? Or is it similar to the past where there's been talk about AD shooting more threes or the team shooting more threes or doing different things analytically, and it hasn't really materialized the way that the organization has wanted? So that's something I'm going to be fascinated by for the first game, for really the 6 preseason games entering the regular season. Like just how many changes are there actually, and how much of this is just some of the same old talking points or attempts to prioritize things that just aren't able to actualize when you get into gameplay. And finally, the third takeaway from training camp is that the Lakers might not have a 9-man rotation. And so what I mean by that is today, JJ Redick was asked about why he revealed his starting lineup and how that is unusual among some coaches, that some coaches hold that's like, it's like the nuclear codes, like they just don't want to release their starting lineup or talk about it and set those expectations or allow their opponent to have an advantage in game planning. And JJ downplayed it. It was just like, Chris Finch is going to know when we play the Timberwolves. Chris Finch is going to know by starting lineup. Like he's going to know it, whether it's 30 minutes before or 2 days before. He's probably going to have an idea of who we're going to start, what that's going to look like, how we're going to play, and he's going to game plan for that, whether I tell him the starting lineup or not. And then the other thing that he mentioned, which I think has been an important thing, was also setting clear expectations for the players in terms of these are the starters, these are their roles, and then filling in the other guys around them. But specifically, he brought up the 9-man rotation, and I'm sure he said that he's off social media and not paying attention to what's being written or what's being said. But it seems like it might have gone back to him that people have been talking about this 9-man rotation declaration and talking, trying to figure out who are the 9 guys and who's going to be left out, and should they be going with 10 guys or 11 guys or whatnot. Because I think on paper, the Lakers have 11 rotation caliber guys. I think it's the 5 starters plus Gabe Vincent, Dalton Connect, Max Christie, Jared Vanderbilt, Christian Wood, and Jackson Hayes. And if you're going with a 9-man rotation, 2 of those guys are on the outside looking in, and based on I think contracts and potential roles and just who's performed, who's proven, I think the likely 9-man rotation would be the 5 starters plus Gabe, Max Christie, Jared Vanderbilt, and Jackson Hayes. And Jackson Hayes already has an advantage just because he's healthy, and Christian Wood is not healthy right now, but he also has a pre-existing relationship with JJ Redick. I think there are some ways that they could use him similarly to AD, not as a post scorer, not as an ISO guy. To be clear, I'm not saying Jackson Hayes, he does not have the same skill set from a scoring perspective as Anthony Davis, but in terms of his ability to be a screener and a roller, a finisher at the rim, his ability to be a DHO guy, his ability to, and that's dribble handoff, his ability to operate out of the short roll and make plays, find cutters, find shooters. Like Jackson Hayes is a better screener than Christian Wood. He's a better roller and finisher than Christian Wood, and he's also a better passer than Christian Wood. So I think from that perspective, if the Lakers are looking to use Anthony Davis more as a guy operating out of the elbows, as a guy operating above the 3-point arc, as this playmaking hub like a Sabonis or like a Jokic, Jackson Hayes, in my opinion, is more equipped to replicate that with a second unit than Christian Wood is. To me, Christian Wood is more of a supplementary guy in terms of playing in 2 big lineups next to Anthony Davis or next to Jackson Hayes, a pick and pop guy, catch and shoot guy. Maybe occasionally we'll get a post up or an ISO, but I don't think you're going to use him in the same way that you use an AD or a Jackson in terms of screening, rolling, diving, lob threat, and then also playmaking out of the short roll. Like I just don't think that's Christian's game. So I think right now it's looking like it's going to be Gabe, Max, Jared Vanderbilt, and Jackson Hayes. Slip up there, but we have to see what it looks like in reality, right? Like, I mean, we're talking about this in theory. We're picking up quotes from JJ Redick and sort of piecing it all together. But we will see against the Minnesota Timberwolves what the Lakers' rotation is. And we don't yet know if LeBron James and Anthony Davis are both going to play. So last year, LeBron missed the first preseason game. AD rested the third preseason game, and they both played fewer than 20 minutes in the second preseason game. So we don't really know. Again, that was a previous coaching staff and different goals to start the season. But I think, like, I'm not reporting anything here. I would not be surprised if they both play in both games, and maybe there's a game where they only play like a first quarter or first half or something. But I think for the Lakers to get off to a better start, they do need to prioritize reps and getting this group together with this new coaching staff and just figuring out some of these things that they've been trying to install in terms of offensive and defensive systems and concepts and principles and all that stuff. So I think there is value for the Lakers in trying to get as many reps as possible in the preseason. And again, within reason, you don't want to be playing these guys 35, 40 minutes. You probably don't even want to be playing them 30 minutes. Even 25 might be too much. But if you could get 15 to 20 minutes for the starters, and then another 15 to 20 minutes for some of the key bench guys, and then the rest of the time is the young guys, the two-way guys, the Exhibit 10 guys. Like that to me makes sense from a strategic standpoint, is at least trying to get your top 9, top 10 playing 15, 20 minutes per game. So that to me would be a reasonable strategy, but we will find out. JJ said they're still determining the plan for LeBron and AD for this weekend and really for the preseason at large. But he did say that it seems like he got back to him, that there was a 9-man rotation and people have been talking about that. And he clarified he's going to be adaptable and he's not committed to a 9-man rotation. Like that's the initial plan. But if the plan changes or things just change throughout the course of the season, he's not afraid to change the rotation or go in a different direction in terms of how many players he's using. So when I look at the projected top 9 and Dalton Knecht and Christian Wood likely being outside of it, I look at a guy like Dalton. I think he has a golden opportunity with Jared Vanderbilt out right now, because right now it's kind of settled with Jared Vanderbilt and Christian Wood out through training camp and the preseason and potentially out to start the season, where you have your 9 of the starters plus Gabe, Max, Dalton, and Jackson. So I think like that will kind of solve itself and we'll see how that plays out. But Dalton, I think, has a golden opportunity to establish himself as a rotation caliber guy with Vando out and with him playing maybe 12, 15, 18 minutes a night, depending on how he's shooting, depending on how he's defending. So Dalton, I think, could earn a rotation spot and twist JJ's arm and force him into playing 10 guys if he performs well in the preseason and to start the season. And then the other guy that's been getting a lot of buzz, and he did get some buzz last year, so I don't want to overreact. I want to temper expectations for him. But Jalen Hood-Schifino, coming off his back surgery back in March and not playing in summer league and rehabbing and recovering over the offseason, he's been called out by JJ Redick. He was called out by Rui Hachimura today. Rui said he's gotten stronger, he's more athletic, that he's seen the progress with Jalen and that he thinks he's a much better player than he was last season. So we saw Jalen make that jump in the G League before his injury and before he was shut down. So that's the most recent sample size we can go off of. The most recent sample size we can go off at the NBA level has not been encouraging or promising from a JHS perspective. He has not looked ready and has looked quite far away from being ready to even be like a back end rotation guy. So Jalen's the guy to me, outside of like the top 9 and who I expect to be in the rotation and just like what that looks like. Jalen's the one guy I'm fascinated by. And I just want to see, what does JHS look like? What is his potential role with this team? And can he push a Gabe Vincent or a Dalton Knecht or a Max Christie, or maybe Cam Reddish is like a fringe rotation guy? Like, can he push him for a spot in the rotation, right? And that's the player I think I have my eye on the most entering Friday night's game. But let me know in the comment section below who you are most excited to see, or what you are most excited to see with the Lakers' first preseason game on Friday. As a reminder, I will be going live after the game, so please be tuning in for that. My guess is I will be going live about 2 hours or so after the game, because got to go in the locker room, talk to people, transcribe a little bit, and then get to writing. So my guess is I would say like 11:30, 12 Pacific time. The game's at 7:30, so maybe around 11:30 or 12 will be when I go live on YouTube. I'll go live for like 20, 25 minutes, talk about 3 takeaways from the game, and then get into some Q&A before I have to wrap up. But so be on the lookout for that for those on YouTube, or again, even if you're not typically consuming my YouTube content, tune in so you can ask questions and we can interact. But that will be the plan for post-game Friday, and moving forward with post-game situations, I will be going live on YouTube and then posting the audio the next morning on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. But thank you so much for watching and listening. Let me know what you thought of the 3 takeaways. Let me know if you had any other takeaways that you wanted to touch on or get into with me or other people in the comments about. I would love to hear from you guys. As always, for those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on post notifications, and like and comment on this video. And for those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I'll be back Friday night. I'll talk to you then.